Welcome back to the Republic Brothers Podcast. He's Matt, I'm Mike. Today's March 11th, 2026, and this is episode 41. Before we get into the show, please hit the subscribe button and like the episode so you don't miss our next episode on Monday. Gavin Newsom's wife is in the news this week. Apparently maps can be gay, and of course, we're going to talk about Iran and Operation Epic Fury. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. We're going to start with Gavin Newsom and his wife today. The fact that Jennifer Siebel Newsom is having her film shown so widely in public schools across the state of California is causing a real stir about political influence creeping into education. Siebel Newsom, a filmmaker who is also Governor Gavin Newsom's wife, runs a nonprofit called the Representation Project. This group has licensed her documentaries, which are all about gender and masculinity, to over 5,000 schools in all 50 states. That's hitting about 2.8 million students. A big sticking point is that the line between a political mission and education policy is getting fuzzy. Critics are saying that Siebel Newsom's films, which even feature her husband as a talking head, are pushing a progressive viewpoint focused on stuff like toxic masculinity and gender inequality. Her documentaries like Misrepresentation and The Great American Lie have actually been recommended in official state guidance by the California Department of Education and promoted by the First Partners Office as part of social emotional learning programs, whatever that means. The nonprofit charges schools anywhere from $49 to $1,500 for the licenses. Reports say that schools have paid about $1.48 million to license her films. Now, critics feel this is an improper use of political clout to push a specific party's agenda, worrying that it might be pulling focus away from key subjects like reading and math and contributing to students' slipping performance in those areas. Now, my personal opinion on this is disgusting. She's profiting off of vulnerable children and using her husband's position to push her dumb ideas. Did you know that Gavin Newsom signed a law back in July of 2024 that prohibited schools from forcibly outing LGBTQ students to come to their parents?
Yes, I had heard that before.
Yeah. This whole story just came out about his wife because the Supreme Court just ruled against Gavin's law from July of 24. They did the smart thing and sided with the parents who have said that they have a right to direct the upbringing of their own children. All you have to do is connect the dots here. Gavin says schools can't out the students to their parents, all while his wife is showing them videos of transgender people and toxic masculinity. This is basically grooming.
It is a complete waste of time and money. It is grooming, but the left does not see things the way we do. We think children are the responsibility of the parents, and they have a right to all the information about their children. The left see children as the state's children, which is just wrong. We as a nation do not perform all that well on standardized tests compared to other countries. We are below average in math when you compare us to wealthy countries. We should be spending our money and time improving their knowledge base and teaching them to think critically. Rather than confuse young children about gender, let's teach them some math and some science. School should prepare children for the real world. It does not do that very well right now, and there's plenty of data that show our IQs are dropping due to new technology being available. Kids are not learning how to read or do math. They're copying the question into ChatGPT and getting the answer without even thinking about the question or how you would solve it.
Yeah, I think that technology and computers and all that can be a good thing, but in the case of schools, most of the time, that's exactly what they're doing. They're going to Google, they're Googling the answer, Google's giving them the answer. They're not learning anything, they're just copy-pasting the answer and moving on from there.
We know that's a big thing in college, too. Professors are having a hard time with students using AI to write essays.
Yeah, and we're at the point now where we're having AI check to see if kids used AI when they write their papers. I just can't tell you how enraged I would be if my 7-year-old came home from school and was like, "Oh yeah, Daddy, today we watched a video about a boy turning into a girl." That just blows my mind that that's even happening.
It is crazy, but that's when they have to do it. You can't convince someone who's older and took biology and science classes that there's more than two sexes. They like to say gender's a different thing. It's not. There's only two. You have to confuse them when they're young so that they'll be on your side and parrot your lines.
Yeah, the thing I just can't quite grasp here is, why are the schools being charged? Some are being charged $49 and some are being charged $1,500. If I had to guess, I would say that the schools in the states that lean blue are probably being charged more, and the schools in the states that are red are only getting that $49 price tag, so it's easier for them to get that into the school.
There's that, and I'm going to guess the wealth of the county that school is in is also a factor.
Yeah, that just seems like such a wide range to be charging for the exact same product. But hey, $1.48 million to her. Okay, let's get into some Operation Epic Fury in Iran. Democrats and Republicans have been saying for years and years that Iran could not have a nuclear weapon. That is not new. But for some reason, there's people acting like Trump is way out of line for doing something about it. Donald Trump has kept his promise.
On the very first day I came down the escalator in 2015, I said, quote, "I will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. And all I'm doing is keeping my promise." Think of that. That was in 2015. I said it. It was a threat then and a much bigger threat now, but no longer a threat, not for a long time anyway. We want to keep it that way. As we continue Operation Epic Fury, we're also focused on keeping energy and oil flowing to the world. And I will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to stop the globe's oil supply. And if Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level. I will take out those targets that were easy and that I mentioned just before. We'll take them out so quickly, they'll never be able to recover, ever. If they want to play that game, they better not play that game.
Matt, isn't this exactly what we want from our politicians? Honesty? Someone who says something and means it. I think that's a pretty rare quality in politicians these days.
It is a rare quality in a politician. Trump is also a rare breed where what he says publicly and privately are basically the same. He meant what he said on Iran, and he will go down on the right side of history on this. As we saw with Joe Biden, the left is usually on the wrong side of history.
Imagine how much harder this would have been if we would have waited to pull the trigger until after Iran already had a nuclear weapon. Marco Rubio says we are well on our way in Operation Epic Fury.
This is a terrorist government. This is a terroristic regime. And we are seeing them conduct terrorism using nation-state elements, using weapons like missiles and one-way attack drones. And the objective of this mission is to destroy their ability to continue to do that. And we are well on our way to achieving that objective every single day with overwhelming force, with overwhelming precision.
Glad to hear we're doing well. I think Marco Rubio is spot on with this. Iran was hoping we wouldn't do anything until after they had so many weapons that the cost of doing something would have been extremely high. They are the root cause of all problems in the Middle East. And imagine how much worse it would be if they could hide behind the threat of nuclear weapons flying.
Yeah, you would think that it wouldn't be hard to dispute that they are the center of all evil in the Middle East, but there's still people that are trying to do it. And we've said multiple times that this conflict needs to move quickly and be done with fast. President Trump is saying now that he believes it will be over soon.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
Are you talking
but soon.
about days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect
Very
to...
soon. Look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. In fact, there are two levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that. But two levels of leadership are gone. Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about. So it's obviously been very, very powerful, very effective.
Okay, Matt, so here's the big question. Do you think that President Trump is right? Let's give a little prediction time from you and me on when we think this is officially going to be over.
I do think Trump is right. The operation has already taken out much of their military. Iran does still have some missile launchers hidden in tunnels and underground. And when they come out to fire a missile, we try and target those launchers. We do need to wrap this up quickly to bring oil prices back down. Anytime oil gets near $100 a barrel, it really starts to put a squeeze on people's wallets. My gut feeling tells me this will go for about 35 days. I believe we're on day 12 now, so a couple more weeks.
Yeah, that's about what I was going to say. I was going to say a month, so I guess you could say, 30 days. I think that by the end of March, I think that this will be over.
I just see a couple more weeks. I thought about a month too, but I think it'll go slightly longer than that.
Yeah, hopefully it goes well. We don't lose any more troops. Like you said, we know at this point that Iran has pretty much been crippled. They're not firing near as many missiles as they were at the very beginning. And that is thanks to our military power.
Yeah, the conventional military side is done. They're just left with the terror side of missiles and drones.
Yeah, we're basically just picking off one by one what's left. Now, talking about this war being over, we mentioned before that Donald Trump said he wanted unconditional surrender from Iran. Now, I stumbled across this clip from Ben Shapiro's show, and I had to share it. I thought this was hilarious. This was Ben Shapiro playing and then reacting and explaining what Tucker Carlson was saying about what he thinks unconditional surrender would be for Iran.
Here was Tucker Carlson explaining that he hopes that America does not get unconditional surrender from Iran and accuses the United States military of wanting to go into Iran and rape everyone.
Unconditional surrender means foreign troops get to rape your wife and daughter, and everyone knows that. And so to avoid that, people will do anything. And so that's why it requires that level of force to get a population subdued to the point of unconditional surrender. That's why.
When President Trump calls for Iran's unconditional surrender, what he's calling for is the mass rape of Iranian women. It's insane. I would ask if Tucker Carlson was dropped on his head as a baby, but we have a long record of him not being like this. So the question now is whether he was dropped on his head as an adult.
What a weird thing for Tucker Carlson to say. Now, we have a whole segment planned out for Tucker Carlson and Israel that we haven't gotten to yet just because of everything that's going on right now. But when Tucker says stuff like this, it makes you wonder what happened to him ever since he left Fox News.
That's just stupidity from Tucker. The Japanese had the same fears in the 1940s when we called for their unconditional surrender. The government in Japan told all the citizens of the country that we would come in and rape and murder them if they lost. What actually happened? We went in and fed them and provided them drinking water to ensure they were safe. They were stunned at how we treated them, and because of that, they remain an ally to the U.S. to this day. Unconditional surrender has nothing to do with the general population. It is all about the government doing the things we want. We don't even have ground troops in Iran, so how Tucker thinks that is what we're after is just dumb. He really has gone off the rails. I think it was very smart of Trump to say Tucker Carlson is not a part of MAGA. You don't want people with takes like that being the speaker for your movement.
Yeah, the more and more I see of Tucker the last little bit here, the more and more he has gone off the rails. It seems like every other time I hear him speaking, he's saying something crazy. We just had this whole story. We just had the whole story that he gave us about being detained at the airport in Israel. It's just up and down. It's a roller coaster with him.
I still get the impression he's on the right when it comes to things like immigration. But on the foreign policy side, he is bizarrely on the wrong side of all of them. This is someone who once said, "Why shouldn't I root for Russia in the Ukraine-Russia war?" It's just bizarre. He hates Israel, and he's now on the side of Iran.
Yeah, and he wasn't saying any of this stuff when he was on Fox News. So what happened to him? Was he being held back by Fox News and Fox News' lawyers saying, hey, you can't say this or you can't say that? And now that he's on his own, he just is flying off the rails? Or what's the deal with him?
The more he speaks, the more I think they had the reins on him a little bit and were holding him back. Given how far out there he is on some of these issues, they can't be new thoughts.
No, I wouldn't think so either. I think he's had these thoughts for a while, and like you said, he just wasn't able to say them. Well, let's shift gears on the Iran stuff just a little bit, and then I want to circle back to the War Powers Act that we talked about before. So there is a Newsmax report suggesting that U.S. intelligence snagged some encrypted Iranian messages right after Ayatollah Ali Khamenei died on February 28th. The big worry is that these could be the quote-unquote go time signal for sleeper cells around the world. Apparently, the message went out to a bunch of countries and is probably aimed at hidden recipients who have the right keys to decode it. Now, this kind of signal is a known way for them to activate or instruct pre-positioned assets without using the internet or cell phones. Right now, the alert is mostly just about needing heightened situational awareness. They haven't named any specific targets yet, but it definitely highlights general worries that Iran might use these sleeper cells in Western countries in order to hit back after the attack on their leadership. Law enforcement has been told to seriously ramp up their monitoring of any weird radio frequency activity. What do you make of this threat, Matt?
No surprise that a terrorist regime would try to do terrorism. We saw that in the initial reaction from Iran. They just tried to make the war as widespread as possible. It was about increasing the cost of any military action to convince us not to take action. It's not a huge surprise. These drones do have some range, a few thousand miles. So the military really does need to be on the lookout for Iranian-linked ships in the Pacific. They can't launch the drone from Iran and reach the homeland, but a proxy group that has a ship could launch from the Pacific and cause serious damage. Police need to be aware of this, and as they said, they need to keep monitoring for weird radio frequency activity that would indicate drones in the air. For the average person, I wouldn't worry about it.
Well, obviously, we will monitor that, see if there's anything else that comes up with it. Now, we know how Tucker feels about Israel. This segues us into the politicians who are now saying that we sent troops to die for Israel. We've heard a bunch of politicians saying that. But someone sent me this clip from the Officer Tatum show, and I think this was perfect. Brandon Tatum was talking about Davory Darkins and what he had to say about our troops. Take a listen.
If you guys are new here, you know how I like to do this. I show you both sides. I don't tell you what to think. You think whatever you want. Sometimes I will get things wrong. I'm a human being, and in the end, it's okay to agree to disagree. But I'm hell-bent on what I'm about to tell you right now. Those 6 service members did not die for Israel. They died for the United States of America. They died for their family. They were wearing the military uniform, U.S. Army. Get your facts straight. It is so disrespectful when I see commentators who never served a lick in the military acting like they know what it's like to serve in the military. Like they're in our heads as veterans. Like they've been to Afghanistan. It's crazy to me. It's like white liberals thinking they know what black people are going through. It's ignorance. I get we all have an opinion. It doesn't mean we have to express it in such an ignorant way. Those soldiers knew exactly what they were signing up for. When I joined the military at 17 years old, I knew what I was signing up for. There's always a potential that you will not come home. You don't even have to be infantry to know that. You don't have to be a Navy SEAL or Special Operations or Delta Force. No. Anybody can die overseas serving our country. And the interesting part about all this, there have been soldiers who have been killed by Iranians' proxies, even when there wasn't an actual campaign against them. But now that it's politically convenient to disagree with the president because everybody has freaking Israel derangement syndrome, now we want to try to make that point. I just don't get it. We can criticize the president and disagree with his foreign policy. Keep the veterans out of your mouth.
This the end of the show. I don't even think I need to do no more show, do I? Thank you, Devori. The same people that actually have a relationship with God, we see these things very clearly. We can see very clearly without bias why we are going to war with Iran. We understand the history. We are consistent on our principle, and this is it. I don't understand why people are so obsessed with Israel. I don't get it, bruh.
Now, that is another veteran who has served our country saying basically the exact same thing that our guest Mark said on episode 39. If you've never picked up a weapon and served our country, he doesn't want to hear it from you. Devori said the exact same thing. Now listen, I believe everyone is entitled to their opinion, even if it's a dumb one. But if you're going to take a strong stance on something, make sure you know what you're talking about. Imagine it like this. You're a professional football player, and someone who's never played football in their entire life and just watches it on TV every once in a while tries to tell you what you did wrong and criticize your game. You're probably not going to be very inclined to take their advice, right? It's the same thing here. It is a very bad look to try to tell a U.S. service member why they chose to serve their country. And it's even worse to try to tell the family of a fallen soldier who they died for.
There are some wild takes out there. I'd be curious how many people think the U.S. is getting no benefit from this. These service members each had their own reason for serving their country. We thank them for their sacrifice, and they are the true heroes in this world. They did not die for Israel. It just so happens that our interests and Israel's interests aligned, so we chose to work together.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I just could not imagine how I would feel as the parent of one of these soldiers who tragically lost their life to hear a politician come on TV and say that my son died for Israel. I'm pretty sure if my son were to grow up and join the military, he didn't join the military for another country. He joined the military for the exact same reason that every other veteran in this country joined the military. They understood what they were signing up for. They signed up to protect the freedom of this country. Now, let's circle back to the War Powers Act real quick. Check this clip out.
You got Tim Kaine and everybody else talking about, hey, it's unconstitutional. Well, evidently it's not. Article 2 of the Constitution stipulates that the president does indeed have the right to act if he considers it a national security issue. So he was never really in any trouble. He was never really in any danger of being stripped of his potency as the commander-in-chief to make such a decision. Why are we acting like he isn't? Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the United States Constitution declares the president to be commander-in-chief of the Army, Navy, and state militias. Presidents often cite this power to justify unilateral military action without immediate congressional approval, specifically to defend U.S. citizens or respond to threats. Period.
Is that not exactly what we said when we had Mark on and we had that long discussion about the War Powers Act? We brought up Stephen A. Smith in one of our blind rankings on non-politicians that you'd vote for. I have heard several people say that Stephen A. is the most conservative liberal that they have ever heard speak. Stephen A. is one of the few Democrats that is not blinded by his hatred for Donald Trump.
He's one of the few who doesn't think of it personally. Stephen A. for the left is a breath of fresh air because he's willing to talk about anything and debate anyone on those topics. A lot of the left just can't do that. Stephen A. here is right. The president is the commander-in-chief who leads the military. Do people think the president would have time to brief all 535 members of Congress every time something comes up in the world? He wouldn't, and no president in the past has done it. The leader of the country needs to have options to ensure our national security.
Exactly. That reminds me of that clip from Bill Maher where he baits Adam Schiff.
Oh, yeah, he gives them the Obama quote, thinking that it was Trump.
Yeah.
And when Schiff disagrees with the quote, Maher hits him with, that was Obama in 2011.
Yep, it was perfect. He's like, oh, you disagree with that? And he's like, yeah, of course I disagree with that. And he goes, oh, okay, well, because that was Obama.
It was too vague when it was Trump, but once it was Obama, it was okay.
Yeah, and then Schiff spent 4 minutes trying to explain how it was different, even though everyone in the audience was thinking, I don't think so.
All right, let's move on to our next topic because I wanted to bring this up because I've been saying it for a while, and some people in Europe have started to realize their mistake. European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen has said it was a strategic mistake for Europe to reduce its nuclear energy sector. She said, quote, "This reduction in the share of nuclear energy was a choice. I believe it was a strategic mistake for Europe to turn its back on a reliable, affordable source of low-emissions power." End quote. She is right, and I'm glad people are finally realizing it. Europe got about 35% of its electricity from nuclear power in 1990, but it is down to about 15% today. Nuclear plants began being phased out after Chernobyl, and when the Fukushima disaster happened in 2011, that scared most of the Europeans off nuclear power, especially von der Leyen's home country of Germany. The fear was real, but they did not truly understand why Japan's nuclear plant failed. They were worried plants would melt down, despite the fact that what caused that disaster in Japan literally cannot happen in Europe. Europe is not at risk of earthquakes and tsunamis like Japan is. Now, of course, some people are still on the green energy bandwagon. Germany's environment minister, Carsten Schneider, criticized Ursula von der Leyen's, quote, backward-looking strategy. Schneider wants more wind and solar. Wind and solar are what got them into this mess, because neither of them can provide consistent and reliable energy. I will remind everyone that Trump warned Europe that their push for green energy would force them to be reliable on Russia for oil and gas, and that is exactly what happened. They gave up energy security to their longtime rival and enemy.
For anyone out there who hasn't seen the show Landman, I highly recommend it. This whole conversation makes me think of a clip from the show where Billy Bob Thornton's character is riding around with in the truck with the lawyer for the oil company, and she sees all these wind turbines. And she's like, oh, why are they using wind turbines? And he says, oh, they're using it to power the grids. We're off the grid out here. We don't have, that's how they get electricity. And she says, oh, they're using clean energy. And he says, they're using alternative energy, not clean energy. There's nothing clean about it. And then he goes in to explain how much money and oil it takes to put those things up. And then he says a quote that really makes you think about it. He says, if Exxon thought those things were the future, they'd be putting them up everywhere. So that makes me ask this question, Matt. Is there any way that they can get their energy security back?
Could they? Yes, but it will be very difficult because of all the regulations within the European Union. The way they get their energy security back is nuclear power plants. Many European nations don't have large oil reserves, so they have to go elsewhere for it. Russia has by far the largest amount of oil. Norway has plenty, some onshore, a lot offshore. The UK has the same access to the oil fields in the North Sea. As a continent, they don't have vast reserves, such to a point each country could kind of go at it alone. Many nations want quote-unquote green energy like wind and solar to take over, but wind and solar are not reliable enough to build your economy around. The sun is in the sky half the day on average, and clouds and weather cut into that. The wind isn't always blowing, so you do not generate electricity consistently enough to depend on that as the main source of energy. You really cannot store large quantities of energy, so you have to make the power as people need it. That is why nuclear is a great option for Europe. Nuclear can be your base load power supply, and you can use green energy for a spike in consumption. I'll use your home state as an example, Mike. South Carolina generates 55% of its electricity in the state through nuclear power plants. That's how it should be done. Nuclear is among the cleanest sources of power in the world. The number of lives lost as a result of nuclear is also a fraction of what oil, gas, and coal have. But you know all the events that involve nuclear. 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima. It's a bit like airplanes and cars. Far, far, far more people die in car crashes, but you can name every airplane crash, despite the fact that very few people die.
Yeah, like with airplane crashes, it's one of those things that happens so rarely, you hear about it every time it happens because it doesn't happen that often.
Exactly. It's headline news in every country when a plane crashes, regardless of where it is.
All right, let's move on to our last topic before we get into our blind ranking. Now, this one is super silly, Matt. Did you know that Biden was trying to turn maps gay? Here's a clip from Benny Johnson. Try to hold your last for the end of the clip on this one.
We all know the famous Alex Jones clip. They're turning the freaking frogs gay.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
Practically my ringtone. Do you know that they've moved on from the frogs and now they're turning the maps gay? This is a real clip from Congress this week. Watch this.
Can you tell me what is queering the map?
So I think we were trying to make the maps more gay.
Literally? That's,
well,
how do you make
know.
a map more gay?
I mean, especially
or
with
gay
AI,
at all?
You know, since the age of cartography, we've had pretty good maps, but maybe they weren't gay enough. So I know also, I took critical theory in college. I think sometimes people use queer as a verb. I do understand that the maps that we were trying to make gay were, I think, of Czechia and Slovakia. So maybe those countries asked for it. I doubt it, but I don't know.
We do have real things to work on in Congress, like what's going on with the imminent threat of Iran, and it is embarrassing that we have to talk about the fact that things like this were funded. Non-binary and trans francophones, linguistic attitudes and ideologies towards inclusive French in Montreal, Canada, these things. I'm going to give you a list. My time has expired. I'm going to give you a list of these, and any of these that you can provide me the receipt for, the Facebook link to where they wanted to take photos of how they were doing a DEIA flash mob in Kyrgyzstan, whatever documentation they have of all of these things, we would love to see that and would absolutely love to know the individuals specifically that were busy writing these grants, because they have no business receiving another paycheck from the people of the United States of America. In that, I will recognize Representative Shah.
So that's somebody named Sarah Rogers from President Trump's State Department saying that she found out that the Biden administration was trying to turn the maps gay. And they used your taxpayer dollars to do it. And you wonder why people don't want to pay taxes.
Is there any surprise with the Biden administration these days? They were truly great at wasting time and money. I have absolutely no idea how you make a map more gay. The woman in the clip said she wasn't sure if the other countries asked for their part of the map to be more gay, but we should look into whether or not they did. If they did, we now know not to take anything they ever say seriously again. I really think time will not be kind to Joe Biden's legacy in office. He will probably go down as the worst president in history.
Yeah, this whole time when I was watching that clip, I was like, oh my God, I really hope that they show a picture of what a gay map looks like. I cannot even imagine what it would look like. The only thing I could picture is that maybe they put a rainbow on it. That could be the only thing that would make me be like, oh, that map is gay. So if anyone out there has any idea what a gay map looks like, please send it to us. Now, on that note, it is the end of the show. It is time for our blind ranking segment. Of course, same category as last episode, non-politicians that Matt would vote for president. Matt, are you ready?
I am.
All right, so with this list, I gave you a little bit of a sports theme.
That should be fun.
Yep, these are all well-known sports figures. You'll know who every one of them are.
Okay, let's go.
Their politics might not necessarily be right off the top of your head, but you can probably guess just based on their character, if you would like that person or not.
I can guess by their character and what sport they play.
Yeah.
There was a study done recently that said Major League Baseball was the most conservative sport out there.
Well, I will give you a hint. There are no baseball players on the list.
Okay, fire away.
All right, your first name is my favorite athlete of all time, Sidney Crosby.
I'm going to ballpark it and go 3. Just an FYI, only 2% of the WNBA is conservative, so I know all of the sports. And
There's no WNBA players either.
Well, I knew that because you said well-known figures, and there's no such thing as a WNBA player who's well-known.
There's like one. There's Caitlin Clark. That's probably about it.
Okay,
and even
fair.
she isn't, I wouldn't necessarily call her well-known either, to be honest.
Compared to other athletes, yes. But
Yeah.
I know all of the sports and where they line up.
All right, your next name is Deshaun Watson.
Does my country have any massage parlors in it?
Lots of them.
5.
All right, you went number 5 with Deshaun Watson. Next up, you have Megan Rapinoe.
27. Made a mistake on Deshaun, but okay. 4.
Number 4. Next up, you have Pat McAfee.
Ooh. Okay, he's better than 3. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about what comes next.
I'll give you a hint. The last person is a football player.
The last person is a football player. I'm going to go 1.
Okay, going 1 for
I don't
Pat
think
McAfee.
the next one will be better.
I would agree with you. Your last one is Brett Favre.
Well, other than all the fraud stuff, not terrible.
Yeah.
But I think that's right to go Pat over Brett.
Which is funny, too, because Brett Favre almost sued Pat McAfee.
Pat's a really good business mind. I know he won't get credit for it, but he understands business and marketing, so he, as president, I think would do better than Brett Favre.
Yeah, he's a good personality. And, I mean, I like him because he lets Aaron Rodgers come on the show and pick up a microphone, so...
Could you imagine the press conferences if Pat McAfee were the guy at the podium?
That would be hilarious. All right, well, you finished with Deshaun Watson at 5, Megan Rapinoe at 4, Sidney Crosby 3, Brett Favre 2, and Pat McAfee 1. I think you could flip Favre and Crosby, right?
Those two are really close. Crosby doesn't speak about politics, so you really don't know where he is.
That kind of tells you where he is, though, you think?
In a sense, yes.
Yeah.
Because even in Major League Baseball, for example, it's only close to 50% conservative, but it's only like 15% Democrat, which tells you there's not that many independents in the world. So they were scared to say they were conservative.
Yeah,
it's the same in ice hockey.
How many of them are willing to say...
Yeah.
It's like being a Republican in Hollywood. Like, you just don't say it out loud.
Yeah. I did make one wild mistake, which was Deshaun at 5. That should have been Megan.
Yeah, I thought that you were going to put Crosby at 2 to start, and then when you heard Deshaun, I thought you would have room for him, so you'd go 3 or 4 on Deshaun, and then that pretty much would have locked you into a pretty good list.
I'm still happy with the list. I think I just got 4 and 5 wrong.
Yeah.
2 and 3 are kind of interchangeable, but 1 is right, I think.
Yeah. Yep. All right, well, that's it for episode 41 of the Republic Brothers podcast. If you're still listening, you're exactly who this podcast is for. Before you click away, please hit the subscribe and follow button. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. If you agree or disagree with anything we talked about, drop us a comment and let us know. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.